and welcome to the Not So Modern Housewife. Today I'm going to teach you about potting blueberries and growing blueberries in containers, as well as the potting mix that I use. We're going to talk a little bit about the pH that blueberries like, some of their growing needs, and how we obtain that by growing in containers. So to start off, we're going to have some organic potting mix. We have peat moss, and then I also have pine bark nuggets. I'm going to be doing a large batch. I'm only going to be potting one blueberry for you, but if you're only potting a couple of blueberries, you don't need as much as I am mixing, just to give you an idea. But we'll talk a little bit more about the size of container that you are going to use, as well as what you may actually need for your mix when we start to actually pot the blueberry. Blueberries like a very acidic soil, which is why I'm using peat moss. It is not the most sustainable product for us to be using for gardening. However, the peat moss alternatives that are available are not nearly as low in pH as peat moss, and so that's why we still use it for our blueberries. To start off, I've got my wheelbarrow here. I also have a shovel that I'm going to use to mix, but in general you're going to use equal parts by volume of your soil, your pine bark, and then your peat moss. So to start off, I'm going to dump this here in my wheelbarrow. So we just want to wet it down. And then we want to start using our shovel to just mix everything in. I could have used a little bit bigger container for my mixing, but this will do. That you have in terms of mixing your soil is you put everything on a tarp and use that to kind of turn everything. You can also purchase a concrete mixer, used preferably, that you use for mixing soil. That's probably the best way to get everything incorporated, but I'm a big believer in using what you have on hand. Okay, so with everything mixed together, we're going to get our container. So we use this mix for a few different reasons. First of all, the peat moss is going to help us to retain moisture as well as raising the pH of our soil. And the pine bark is also going to raise the pH, much better than pine needles or pine shavings would, mainly because it takes the pine bark a lot longer to break down. The soil is where we're going to get our nutrients, and then also just to help with the moisture levels and keeping everything balanced in our potting mix. So you want to make sure that you have something in there that's going to provide those nutrients and minerals that your blueberries need. Okay, now you may notice that our mix is very loose. It's going to help with the drainage, but then also soil still needs to be airy. We don't want it to be too compact, too dense, because then that can lead to root rot issues. So we want to be sure that we have a nice loose consistency to our soil. Now, we're planting our blueberry in our container here. We want to just kind of shake it out of the container it was in. And we want to make sure that when we're planting it here, we do not want it to be any deeper than it was in its original pot. So I'm just going to make a little divot here and just fill in around it. And it has enough mulch in it that I don't really need to mulch it, but if you wanted to, you could top dress it with some more pine bark. And then last but not least, we're going to give it a good, nice soaking. Now, if you're growing blueberries on a smaller scale and you don't need a full wheelbarrow full of soil, what you can do is you can mix them in your container before you actually plant the blueberries. Again, you just want to use equal parts by volume, 3, 3, and 3, with your soil, your pine bark, and your peat moss. Mix it in the container. You can probably fill it about half full, mix it, fill it half full, mix it again, and then you can plant your blueberries. If it's not perfectly mixed, don't stress about it. Do the best you can. It'll sort itself out in the end. Now, blueberries don't like to dry out, so I recommend putting them on some type of automatic drip irrigation so that you don't forget to water them, and make sure that they have all of their watering needs covered. You also want to make sure that when you are getting close to fruiting and flowering season, that you are hitting them up with a regular fertilizer, especially if you're growing in containers, because with the watering, the nutrients tend to flush out and the roots don't have a way to go and look for those nutrients in the soil. You also want to keep an eye on pest control. Caterpillars are a very common pest with blueberries, so you may want to use some fungicide just to keep the caterpillars off of your plants until they are done producing. You also want to make sure that you are protecting your blueberries, because they are a favorite snack for your local bird population, and so you may want to put some kind of bird netting over them when they're close to getting ripe, so that you can protect those and have more blueberries for your own harvest. Alright, that's it for today. As you can see, growing blueberries in containers is a very easy process and a great way for you to increase your food production on your homestead. So leave a comment and like below, and please subscribe so you can follow more of our gardening updates.